Welcome back to the Sanctuary of the Grieving Goddess. I am She. This is a place where we speak about the parts of grief that most people never talk about. The parts that happen quietly, in bedrooms, kitchens, cars, and behind closed doors. Today we're opening a sacred and complicated topic: parenting while grieving. Not just parenting after the loss of a child, but parenting after the loss of anything or anyone who anchored your identity, your support, your stability, your confidence as a caregiver, even the version of yourself you used to be. Because grief doesn't only take the person you lost, it takes the parent you were on the day before that loss. Parenting while grieving is one of the quietest forms of suffering. It is waking up to care for others when you haven't figured out how to care for yourself yet. It is making breakfast with tears you don't have the energy to explain. It is helping with homework when your mind is somewhere else entirely. It is packing a lunch with memories sitting on your chest. It's the daily act of love that doesn't look like the love you gave before, but it's still love. For some, grief entered the home through the loss of a child. For others, it entered through the loss of a spouse, a co-parent, or a parent, the person who taught them how to be one. Grief changes the shape of the family. It changes the tone of the house. It changes the emotional weather you are raising your children in. And nobody talks about that. For some parents, grief means you are now raising children without the person who once stood beside you. No shared glances over the chaos of the morning. No partner to split the bedtime routine. No co-regulation of decisions. No second opinion on discipline. No one to hold your hand on the days you are breaking but still pouring cereal. When a spouse dies, grief forces you to become the emotional and structural roof over a house cracking underneath you. And people will say things like, "You're doing so well," because the dishes are washed and the children are fed. But they don't see you crying quietly in the laundry, folding shirts that feel like memories. For others, grief looks like raising children after losing your parent, the person who once mothered or fathered you, the person who answered your parenting questions, the person you called when the baby had a fever, the person who taught you holiday traditions, the person whose voice made you feel like no matter how difficult the day was, you were still somebody's child. Losing a parent is losing your emotional map of motherhood or fatherhood. And suddenly you're parenting without the loss of who showed you how to do it in the first place. For some families, grief means raising children who are grieving each other. A sibling dies and the family changes shape overnight. And you are the parent trying to hold space for a pain you can't fix, can't rewrite, and can't undo. You have to watch your child hurt in a way no bandage can cover, and hold your own hurt besides theirs. It's two different heartbreaks beating in the same house. And the parent is the person who has to keep the lights on while the world has gone dark. And then there's a truth that many grieving parents never say aloud. Sometimes the loss is yourself. The version of you who parented it with softness, stillness, energy, and ease. The version of you who had dreams wrapped around your children. The version of you who believed life would unfold in the order you arranged it. When loss enters your life, you are asked to keep mothering or fathering with a heart that no longer fits the shape it used to. This is a form of grief nobody recognizes because the world only sees the parent you are today, not the one you buried inside yourself. One of the most painful truths is this: the guilt comes in every direction. You feel guilty for laughing one day when you cried the night before, guilty for having nothing left to give one moment, then feeling love surge unexpectedly the next. Guilty for wanting to be alone when your children need you. Guilty for showing up with half the energy you used to. Guilty for surviving. And that guilt is not evidence of failure. It's evidence of love trying to exist in a place it was never meant to live alone. Here's what grief has taught me and what I want every grieving parent to hear. Your children do not need the old you to be okay. They need the real you to love them honestly from whatever truth you are in. They need a parent who doesn't pretend that loss didn't happen. They need a model of how to survive something unthinkable. They need proof that grief can exist in the same room with love without destroying it. Children don't need perfection. They need presence. Presence that is soft. Presence that is tired. Presence that is honest. Presence that is loving, even in pieces. I want to honor something that grieving parents never get credit for, and that's the small acts. The peanut butter and jelly sandwich that you make while your hands are shaking. The bedtime stories that you read between tears. The smiles that you put on so that they can feel normal for 10 minutes on the ride to school when your body feels heavy. These small acts are not small. They are devotion in motion. They are love doing its job while the heart is still bleeding. I wish someone had told me, and I want to tell you now, that there is no one way to parent while grieving. Some days you will be present. Some days you will disappear into yourself. Some days you will cry while you are cooking. And some days you will laugh in moments that surprise you. None of that means you don't love your children. It means you are loving them while you are surviving something no parent should ever have to survive. It means you are rebuilding your identity in real time while still being the foundation for someone else's life. And that is sacred. That is heavy. And that is heroic. I want to take a moment and read the Compassion Insight from Chapter 4 of the Foundations of Grief workbook. Parenting while grieving is its own kind of heartbreak. You're holding your pain and your child's pain at the same time, even when you barely have the strength for your own. This dual responsibility doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. Grief changes your capacity. It changes your energy. It changes the way you show up. And that's okay. You are not the parent you were before the loss, but you are still showing up. And that is love in motion. Children don't need perfection from you during grief. They need honesty, gentleness, and presence. Even if that presence looks quieter, softer, or slower than before. Understanding this helps release the guilt of not being your old self. It softens the pressure to hold everything together. It reminds you that tending to your heart is part of tending to theirs. There is strength in every small act you manage, every moment you stay present, every time you keep going despite the weight you carry. Let this insight remind you, your grief does not make you less of a parent. It makes you a parent surviving the unimaginable and still choosing love every day. And now I want to ask you, how can you bring compassion to the parent or caregiver you have become instead of comparing yourself to the parent you were before the loss? Sit with it, feel what rises, and respond when your heart is ready. Every episode this season, we reflect in this way because grief reshapes us as individuals and as caregivers. If this conversation opens something inside you and you need a quiet place to put it, the Foundations of Grief Season 1 workbook was created for this chapter of your journey. It's not homework, it's a companion for the thoughts you haven't spoken, for the memories that come uninvited, and for the pieces of yourself you still learning to understand. If you need a private space to write, the link is in the bio and the description. Parenting while grieving is choosing life while mourning death. It is love that continues in a house that feels forever changed. It is showing up in the smallest ways, on the hardest days, not perfectly, but honestly. In the next episode, we're going to talk about something many grieving people never get support with, and that is grieving when you can't stop working. Because how do you show up for a job when your spirit is broken? How do you sit in meetings when your mind is somewhere else entirely? How do you perform when your grief makes everything feel meaningless? And how do you carry pain into a world that expects productivity? We're going to sit with that reality that grief doesn't pause for work and work doesn't pause for grief. Until then, please be gentle with your grief, gentle with your children, and gentle with the version of you who is doing both at the same time. You are not alone, not here, never in the sanctuary. Welcome to the sanctuary.